This is all about looking at the present and the past and saying, let's be thankful for where we've gotten.
It's an exciting time for the town. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
The history that we have is so wonderful.
It's just really nice to see a piece of American history.
Well, let me start just by acknowledging the Portsmouth High School music program. You're the hopes and dreams of our future, and you're all beautiful. Thank you for being here, and thank you for starting this off so nice. Thank you very much. So, today is the 375th anniversary of Portsmouth as a body politic. And we're here to recognize, today is the day, and we're here to recognize our political birthday, if you will. And I'd like to start, I want to make my manners and recognize a number of people who are in the room. There's been lots of certificates, proclamations, and all that. I want to read through those quickly, and we'll get to our keynote today, Mr. Jim Garman, our own local Portsmouth historian. He'll have a few words just to round out perspective on what does this really mean to the town, and where did it all come from. So just let me start. On the certificates, Senator Whitehouse sent a nice Senate certificate. It's out on the table you can look at. Attorney General Pete Kilmartin as well. State Treasurer Gina Raimondo. Chris Ariano, Dennis Canario, former Representative Amy Rice is sitting here. Is Linda Finn out there? I don't know if hi Linda, thank you for coming. Our local delegation for being here, I think that's great. Our own town council. Please, if you'd all just stand up real quick, our town council, stand up and take a bow. Thank you all for being here. Tracy Croce, who is the local government records analyst from the Secretary of State's office out of the State Archives Division, has made our opportunity to view the original document, the original compact, a reality for us to view today. First time since anybody can remember that it's been out in the light of day. So please, a big hand for Tracy. Tracy's on the agenda too. After Jim Garman says a few words, she'll take any questions, Q&A related to the document itself, how it's treated, how you get access to it, other than days like today, I suppose, that sort of thing. So let me continue on. We've got some former councilors in the audience. I saw Bill West come in. I saw Joe Robichaud come in. Thank you for your former service to the town. There's lots of town leadership here. The school committee, most of the school committee here. School committee, would you please stand up? Lynn Kritzik, Dr. Kritzik, our superintendent, please take a bow. Of course, we have Mr. Klim over here who's a little tired, so he's going to sit right there. I would like to thank the members of the 375th committee for their leadership in putting all this together and their energy. Started on January 1st, everybody took a plunge. Not me, but some with less common sense went out there and did it. I believe Liz Pedro from the council was out there getting wet. Oh yeah, Andrew. You too, huh? Okay.
Police chief.
Don't forget the
I
school.
mean the fire chief.
Yeah. All right. So thank you to the 375th for putting this together. The chair of that, Doug Smith. He's going to close out this this ceremony. He's going to have a couple of words on a preview of coming attractions, if you will. And there are quite a lot of them. I mean, this entire year is going to be a celebration of this milestone in the town's life. And let me end with this. We actually have a direct descendant of one of the signatories of the compact, Mr. Mike Kendall from Bristol, descended from William Freeborn. Would you stand and take a bow?
It is through his granddaughter, Elizabeth, who married Thomas Duncan, and then it's down to the female line. It's in western Pennsylvania where they married the Kendalls, but the female line is just as important as the male line.
Okay, I just want to make note, Chris Aviano has a proclamation. And just stand up and take another bow, Chris. I appreciate you doing that, and then we'll move right into Mr. Garman's history. Thank you very much for coming here and for doing that. So, just to introduce Mr. Garman, many of us know him. He's been in town not quite forever, but pretty close. He came here through the Navy back in 1961. Jim has been a history teacher at the Portsmouth Abbey School 39 years. That in and of itself, I think, deserves a round of applause. During that same time, he's authored a half dozen historical books, publications over the years. And in addition to being our local historian, very involved in all of the town affairs, he was also one of the founding members of our tree commission. He's on the 375th committee as the official historian, and he's just a wonderful contributor to the life of the town. And without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Jim Brown.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm working with 4 broken ribs, so excuse me. On a cold winter day in Boston, probably in William Coddington's home, the only brick house in Boston. He was the wealthiest man in Boston. A group of people gathered together and made an agreement to band together to create a settlement outside of Boston. There was good reason why they had to leave Boston. They had all been banished from Boston because of their religious opposition, or their opposition to the ministers at least. Of course, the leader of that movement, we all remember, was Anne Hutchinson. She had, in fact, stood trial, whereas many of the other people who had been banished were simply disarmed, interestingly, and told they had so many months to leave. Anne Hutchinson had 2 trials, and one of her major crimes was that she was traducing, meaning slandering, the ministers. And that just wasn't acceptable in a very strict theocracy like we had in Boston. This is a really special day in that we have this compact here before us, and probably the last time it was here in this town was in 1639. When it didn't disappear, it was deliberately taken. I'll tell you how that happened in a minute. We're very fortunate to have this document here, along with another book that we have here, which is the 2nd volume of Portsmouth's Town Records, which will be maintained in the town of Portsmouth. Unfortunately, the compact has to go back. But the 2nd volume is very important too, for reasons I'll mention shortly. One of the things, that 2nd volume was published in 1901, actually as a book it's published. And also, last week on eBay, I got a DVD of it, so it's available. So it's great to have the original here, but as far as research goes, there are other ways to do it so it gets handled less than absolutely necessary. The document, the compact itself, is housed in the State Archives, and we really appreciate the efforts made by a number of people whom I want to mention: Kathy Vieira Bodwin, Carol Zinno, John Tracy, and the Secretary of State, for allowing us to have a chance to look at this document. Again, it's a document, the original document that was printed in was handwritten on March 7, 1638. What is a compact? A compact, in terms of the early 17th century, was an agreement for people to band together for some particular purpose. They signed an agreement, we, the undersigned, swear to do this, and so on. And that's what the Portsmouth Compact is. It's an agreement to band together for the common good. This kind of thing was done from time to time for people as they began the westward movement. Keep in mind that the early settlers settled along the coast, and then they decided, well, maybe there's better farmland a little bit further on, and let's keep on going. And of course, eventually they got to California and bounced back a little bit. So they signed this agreement, in this case, in order to band together for their common good. It was probably, as best we can determine, there are some a lot of probablys associated with this. One is that it probably was signed in William Coddington's home. It probably was written by the Reverend Dr. John Clark, who was one of the early settlers as well. He was both a minister and a physician. And it is also signed by Will Hutchinson, Anne Hutchinson's husband. Excuse me. It's a commentary on the times that Anne Hutchinson did not sign it. Again, no women signed it, and this was the way society was at that time. Fortunately, we've come a long way from that. It probably was written by the Reverend Dr. John Clark because there are biblical references to it. There are some church, some Bible references attached to the compact. So what does it say? What they're doing, and we have to realize there's a precedent here. A precedent for this was what is called the Mayflower Compact that was written in 1620 when the people coming to Northern Virginia got a little off course and decided to make a settlement starting out on Cape Cod and working their way into Plymouth in 1620 when they landed on that rock that has the 1620 carved in it. They knew where to go. Anyway, that uses the phrase civil body politique. And the phrase civil body politique is simply a fancy way of saying we're going to band together for our common good, for our common defense. And that's really the major precedent. That was 1620. Okay? And that became the basis for the settlement in Massachusetts. But it didn't last very long because people really tended to scatter there much more than maybe they did here. So the Portsmouth Compact is an agreement to unify in a body politique and to work together. And in the phrase of the compact, you have it on your program there, submit ourselves, lives, estates to our Lord Jesus Christ and laws of Scripture to be guided and judged thereby. It's an important thing to notice in the Portsmouth Compact that there is no reference to any political authority. The political authority at that time in 1638 was the King of England, King Charles I. The Mayflower Compact does mention the king in 1620, who was James I. So the Portsmouth one does not have any reference to any other political leader anywhere. It's an organization that is going to be created, and we're going to work together, and we're going to be guided by the Scriptures. That was the basis of it, without any reference to any political authority. And again, to be guided and judged thereby. The signatures on the compact present a certain amount of confusion as well. There are 23 signatures on the compact. There's a line drawn through the last 4. We don't know why. First of all, to deal with the main part of the compact, it's certainly a reasonable thing to understand from the standpoint of authority at this time, that the man who signed it first was the most important person. And that's William Coddington. Again, William Coddington, the wealthiest man in Boston, who had become a follower of Anne Hutchinson and had agreed the idea of that the church leaders were not necessarily leading the colony the way they should. So Coddington was the first one to sign. The second one to sign was the Reverend Dr. John Clark. And it makes sense that probably he was the author of it. And that therefore elevates him to a position of some importance in the compact too. He was a young man, he was 28 years old. John Clark is extremely important in Rhode Island history, in American history. He doesn't get much credit. But the Reverend Dr. John Clark was responsible for creating a charter for the Rhode Island colony in 1663. He worked with Roger Williams and got that charter, but Clark did most of the work. Williams came back here. It's perhaps significant to note that 2013 is the 350th anniversary of that charter. That charter is important because it became the constitution of the colony of Rhode Island until the constitution that was created in 1843. The fundamental importance, though, of that charter, as well as Reverend Dr. John Clark, is that he was a strong believer in freedom of religion. And he brought that idea to the New World and especially in this charter of 1663. He and Roger Williams both believed in that, by the way. And that's why, for example, when you look at Newport, you have a different congregational church, different congregation church on just about every corner. Religion there was free expression here. And a lot of people feel that that idea of freedom of religion got into the U.S. Constitution primarily because it had begun here. So John Clark is really important in our history. There is a biography of him being written right now. There's a John Clark Society in Newport, and he's getting more attention than he did in the past 375 years. Okay, so the third signature on the compact is Will Hutchinson. Will Hutchinson was Anne Hutchinson's husband. He, from most accounts, was a relatively weak-willed person. That might make sense because he was married to Anne Hutchinson. But he became an important politician for a while also in the little Portsmouth colony and eventually in the Rhode Island colony. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. There are several of the signers of the compact who never came here. And that's a mystery. We don't know why. There are a few that came here for a very short time and then went back to England. There is one in particular, a really interesting case, when you think about the irony of this, named Thomas Savage. Thomas Savage was married to Anne Hutchinson's daughter. He stayed in Boston. He ultimately became the governor of Boston, of Massachusetts rather, Massachusetts Bay, which is kind of bizarre when you think about it, because they did such damage to Anne Hutchinson's reputation when she left. So there were one or two others who never came here or came here and then left. One of Anne Hutchinson's sons signed the compact, came to Portsmouth, and then went back to England for about the next 40 years. So there's a lot of confusion on the signatures. Now, of those four that are scratched out at the bottom, probably 3 of them ultimately came to Portsmouth in that first year. So that, why? Who knows what that was. Okay, so what the compact does is to provide a base for the initial settlement that they had here. Now think about this. They're signing this on March 7th. And by the way, the calendar thing is so screwed up. It says that it was signed on the 7th day of the first month. Okay? And it wasn't January. They consider, and we had the old style calendar, the new style calendar. I won't get into this. And then we had the Aquidneck Island calendar. As best we can determine, it was March 7th, okay? I think that's fair to say. So, we have this document here in front of us. What happened to it? The records that they had, initially the setup of the government was a town meeting form of government. And Portsmouth had a town meeting form of government until, what, about 1980, 82, somewhere around there. And the town meeting was how things were decided. The person in charge, he has 2 labels of the town meeting. He's sometimes called the magistrate. He's sometimes called the judge. Well, you can imagine who the first judge magistrate was, William Coddington. And the supporters of Coddington had some opposition, but they had political power, at least at first. From that settlement, the first town meeting was in early May of 1638. And up until January of 1639, things got along, but there was controversy. So they decided on a new form of government in January, and they added to the magistrate's position, they added 3 elders. And the 3 elders that were elected were all strong supporters of William Coddington. Somehow. I don't know the politics of it. The town records, which we have here, are really hard to discern what was going on. But what happened was that in April of 1639, a year after they had come here, there was a split, what an early historian refers to as a separation. And what happened was that Coddington and 8 of his supporters decided they were going to leave. I guess 35 people in Portsmouth was too many. So they decided to leave and form a new colony. So guess what they did? On April 28, 1639, they wrote a new compact in which they agreed to band together in a body politic and to locate a new settlement somewhere toward the middle or the southern end of the island. Now, that happened at a town meeting, apparently a tempestuous town meeting. William Dyer was the clerk. The clerk is the secretary. He's the one that kept the minutes. He had the book. He had the record book, which had the compact in it. Without making any minutes of this meeting, he closed the record book and took it. And it went to Newport. So records a little further on in this volume here, this very thin volume up here, records further on are Newport records. I guess that's why we can't keep it. But anyway, so you have the compact in the book being taken away because of this split. And so 9 people went to Newport and established a colony there. I just want to read you the names of those, because the names of those people are all very familiar names in terms of things that are located in Newport. They were Nicholas Easton, John Cogshall, William Brenton, John Clark, Jeremy Clark, Thomas Hazard, Henry Bull, and William Dyer. They went with Coddington to Newport. And so that's where the compact went, the Portsmouth Compact. Now, what complicates this thing further is that those who remained in Portsmouth, they created another compact. Now, in this compact, Compact 3, signed on 30 April, 2 days after the split, 1639, that's the first thing, one of the first things in the volume of Portsmouth records here. And one of the things that's really, again, another mystery associated with that is that on that compact, they swore their allegiance to King Charles. It's really kind of bizarre why they would do that. In any case, the first signature on that compact, the one that went to Newport, by the way, the group that went to Newport, they didn't sign, that one isn't signed. But the ones who stayed here, the first signature on that compact, William Hutchinson, who was elected judge. Okay. And eventually, Newport and Portsmouth got together. I'm not sure how that ever worked out, with Coddington as the governor of the island, and William Hutchinson as an assistant governor, deputy governor. So anyway, there were 3 different agreements, which is really kind of bizarre. And to be honest, I didn't discover the second and third until about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I didn't know they existed. They aren't as important, obviously, as the first one. The first one really should have our attention. But it's kind of interesting to see the second and third. The third rather, of the people who stayed here is in the second volume, but about half the page vertically is missing. And so it's really difficult to ascertain what they're saying. So I think that what's important here and what we're celebrating here today is the document before us right here. And it's a fabulous opportunity for people of this town and this area to see a piece of paper that was signed 375 years ago today. It's just incredible to think about that. I've been writing local history for about 40 years. I've never seen until today. I know it's been accessible. I'm just too lazy, I guess, to go to the archives. But anyway, so this compact is why we're here primarily, and why our group is working really hard with about 1,000 different events over the course of the next 10 months to celebrate the history of Portsmouth. And I think what's really important as far as I'm concerned, and I think the attendance here is a reflection of this, is that our town can be brought together with a common interest. One of my complaints about the town is that we're a lot of neighborhoods. Well, this kind of thing, we hope, just like the Polar Plunge, brings a lot of people together. When I went to the Polar Plunge, I thought, oh, there's going to be 35, 40 people there. We had over 500 people there. And we hope we'll get that kind of response for a lot of the other things that we're going to be doing over the course of the year. So I really appreciate all you coming. It's a great turnout. It's really terrific. And by all means, take a look here. Yeah, John?
Jim, do we have any idea when they physically came here? I mean, I'm thinking of a day like today to come down and pitch a tent. Their house. Again, I'm going to talk about more of this tonight as far as the founding of the colony, but they made the agreement. They bought the island from the Indians
on the 24th of March, 2 weeks after the compact was signed. The price was pretty much of a bargain. They got it for 40 fathoms of white beads. And in addition, this was negotiations through Roger Williams with Canonicus and the Antinomi across the bay in the Narragansett country. And the local sachem for the Narragansett tribe was one of autonomy. And they negotiated that on the 24th so just 2 weeks later. Anne was here the first week in April. And by that time, Will and a few others had begun to build shelters. She hadn't seen her husband for 6 months when she got here, because she had been under house arrest, if you will, a couple of miles away from her 15 children and her family. So she came here the first week of April. She had to be out by the end of March, out of Boston. So I think that it could say probably the last 2 weeks of March into April is when they came. The first ones came. Again, Coddington came, I think, the first part of May, first day of May or so. So they kind of scattered. Anne walked from Boston to Providence, and then they were put on a boat and came down here. They came into town at the town pond up at the other end. I guess we probably can best recognize that as behind the Roger Williams Conference Center. Okay, that's where they came. And the first settlements were all around the gravel pit and all of that out in the park. Question?
What is Roger Williams' involvement with the compact venue?
With the compact, not really anything. Williams was, let's see if I can do this quick. They were looking for a place to go when they were in Boston. They considered New Jersey, they considered Delaware, they considered Long Island. Then someone, again, we don't know, put them in contact with Roger Williams, who also had been banished from Boston, by the way, a year or two earlier. And Williams had negotiated with the Indians, with Canonicus and the Antinomi, for the purchase of what became Providence. A really interesting twist is when he first came to that area, he was on the other side of the Seekonk River. And people then said, you know, you're still in Massachusetts. And so he had to go across the river and set up a second settlement. So Roger Williams assisted them in negotiating with the Indians. Roger Williams signed the agreement. Coddington signed the agreement. Roger Williams signed the agreement. And then you have about 3 marks or 4 marks of Indians who signed it as well. And that was, again, that was probably during the month of March, 1638. Amy?
Wasn't it Anne Hutchinson's sister was friends with Roger Williams? I thought that was the connection.
I'm not sure. It could be. Roger Williams had bounced around Massachusetts from Boston to Salem to Plymouth, and eventually they just threw him out for discriminating against the other ministers. Boston was a very, very rigid society. It was really intense. I mean, Harvard College was established to train ministers, Puritan ministers.
Oh, would it be safe to say that the Portsmouth Compact and the Royal Charter of 1663 has a direct influence on our First Amendment?
I think it's fair to say that. I think you'd have to do a lot of sort of closely tying all that together. And again, I think that's what's being done in this biography that's being written of him.
Because I tried to research that for my own thesis paper. I'm working on a master's degree. And I'm just wondering if maybe Thomas Jefferson or the other founding fathers had these available to actually look at. Now, of course, they're down in Virginia, and we're up here in Rhode Island, but, you know, could these documents been available to them?
Certainly the Charter of 1663 could have been. I don't think the Portsmouth Compact would have been.
Okay.
Right now. Liz.
Thank you.
So where does the compact live today, and how can you view it?
In the State Archives.
It's at the State Archives in a vault on Westminster Street, 337 Westminster Street. We're open 8:30 to 4:30, Monday to Friday.
And it's in a vault?
It's a vault.
And,
Climate
and
control
you can't
vault.
see it?
We can take it out. We also have microfilms.
It's really special. There were a lot of splits that way, but again, there are 39 towns in this state now, and each one has a unique history. They're really special too. I'm doing some research in North Kingstown right now, which is really fascinating to see, because a lot of what I'm doing hasn't been done. Okay, well, I think I've talked on long enough. I hope you get a chance to see the compact up here. don't touch it. Just look at it, and I really appreciate your coming, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, there's another opportunity here now. If there's other questions for the archivist, we'll have Tracy come up and field some questions. Tracy, please. Thank you. There's a gentleman out there.
I was wondering if the bill that you called the bill of sale of equipment government, is that in the state archives?
We actually do have that equipment deed, yes. It's the recorded copy. So it's all in one hand. And there's a copy in your first book as well.
Okay.
Can you take pictures of the compact?
Without a flash, you can.
How big an office do you have? Is there staff? Are new materials coming in?
We're a staff of 8. We run several programs. We have a reference room and microfilm records that people use a lot of. We do get accessions in on a regular basis. Yeah. We just received General Assembly records in 95 boxes. So,
Thank you.
Anybody else got a question? Thanks, Tracy. Appreciate it. Okay. The chair of the 375th Committee, Doug Smith, is going to wrap this up. Doug, if you'd come on up, please.
This is really cool, I gotta tell you. First, I want to thank Jim for his really great talk tonight. I appreciate that. We're here really today to celebrate the founding of our town, Portsmouth, 375 years ago. And our history, as Jim discussed, begins with the signing of the Portsmouth Compact on 7 March, 1638. That's this very document you see before you. That's what's so incredible about this. To put this in some kind of historical perspective, this document is 140 years older than the Declaration of Independence. So this is a really old historic document. Our celebration this year honors this proud heritage, but it also looks forward to what we hope will be an even brighter future. I think we've shown ourselves to be a town that can respond to changes and to adapt to new circumstances. Our sense of community can overcome our political differences as we all celebrate our long history. So over the rest of this year, our 375th year, Portsmouth is going to host a series of events, ceremonies, things like this, and other things that will showcase all areas of our town. There are a lot of people in Portsmouth that don't know all the great things we have here. And we want to expand that. We want everybody to see this beautiful town we have. Both people who are residents and people from outside the town. So we have an opportunity this year. Some of these events will include small traditional things like at the end of the month we have the Easter egg hunted brown house. We're going to be doing larger events later on in the year around the Labor Day weekend. For example, we're going to have a 375th parade at Island Park. And we're going to have a 375th anniversary reception at Glen Manor House over this weekend. There's going to be several other events in there as well. We're going to be having guests from Portsmouth, England, including the Lord Mayor of Portsmouth, as well as from Portsmouth, Virginia, and Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And they'll be joining our celebration, and we plan to show them around New England hospitality. I'd like to invite all of you to come up and join us in the celebration, either as participants or volunteers. We continue to need help going forward with this thing. We live in a beautiful town, and I think now is our time to show it off and to honor our proud heritage and our bright future, which is kind of our logo here for the year. In closing, I'd just like to say we have a website. It's www.portsmouthri375.com. It lists all the events. It lists opportunities to volunteer, and all the information that we have is we're trying to put it out on our website. We also have a Facebook page. And I think it was just a couple of weeks ago we had 1,600 likes on our Facebook page, which is quite a lot for Portsmouth. So I'd like to invite everybody to come up, take a look at the compact. Don't touch it, please. And then come on out and join us for refreshments out here. We have some 375th anniversary coffee that's brewed in Portsmouth, especially for us, from Custom House Coffee. You can taste this. Please sign our guest book. We want everybody that's here to have, we want to have a record, and that's going to be part of the 375 record. So thank you very much. We hope to see you at all our events. Yes,
So I think Newport Artillery Company really adds to the presentation.
Absolutely.
I'd like to
You know, and really, you start thanking people, there's a lot. I'd like to thank John Clem for basically putting this on for us and getting the compact. I think that was great. But we got the whole rest of the year before us, and all we need is you. So come join us. Thank you very much.
Carl, so what do you think of it?
I thought it was great. I thought it was, like I mentioned at the end with the Newport Artillery Company, their members in I hate to say costume, but in uniform, really enhanced the presentation today.
I wonder if they looked that way in 1638. You think, or you think that's an improved uniform?
I think it's an improvement. I think it's an improvement, but it really enhanced the presentation today.
It was great.
It was good.
Really great. What did you think?
I loved it. And in fact, I plan to come tonight too to see. I have all Jim Garman's books.
Great.
Oh yes, all of them, yes.
Yeah, both Jackie and I will be here tonight. Yeah, that's great.
Hopefully you're enjoying a little. Did you come down on the same side, in the Hutchinson side?
No, Philip Sherman was my 7th grade and a grandfather, and he signed the Portsmouth Compact, and I believe he was also recorder for the colony.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, so a lot of the original records are in his handwriting.
So here we are. We have the compact here. Brings you guys over here. Do you know each other?
No, we never met before. But you know, generations and generations we wind up.
How cool is this?
And incidentally, I want to correct something I said before. It was Elizabeth was the granddaughter of William Freeborn, and she's the one that married Thomas Dungan. Her mother was Mary. I just got to get it straight, for the camera.
Well,
but after all these generations, people come together.
So I wonder how many other folks are out there. The edge of history here, standing right next to 2 great documents, and a representative of that era, sorta. Here. Colonel, can you say a few words about the organization, your Newport Artillery Company?
About the artillery company, I could probably talk for 2 or 3 hours. Yeah. But we were founded in Newport on February 1st, 1741, as a training school for the Newport Gentile to be able to know how to control the ruffians.
I see.
And we were British artillery until 1779 when the British left. And then we became, of course, the Artillery Company of Newport, which was defended our town.
Could you say you turned your coats inside out?
Well, no, we just put a feather in a hat.
I see.
If I take the feather out, I'm a British officer.
I see. And if you put the feather
back in, I'm a colonial officer.
Right. Oh, there you go.
That's about the size of it.
That's pretty
cool. Just like they said, put a feather in your hat, and that's what they did.
Isn't that great? Yeah. So, what do you think about these documents here? I mean, some of these things are even older than, and as a matter of fact,
it's just amazing that they're still read. I think the archivists of who do this stuff is
great.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.